Good evening. I would like to welcome everyone to the April 24th council meeting of the City of Mayfield Heights. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Balestria.
Present.
Mr. DeJohn. Mr. Mano.
Here.
Mr. Minor.
Here.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Here.
Mrs. Snyder.
Here.
Ms. Tobin.
Here.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will now move to the acceptance of the minutes, beginning with the March 25th council meeting. I hope everyone's had time to read those minutes over. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sabetta,
Second.
second by Mr. Minor. Are there any suggested changes, amendments, or deletions to those minutes? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? These minutes have been approved as written. Next, we will move to correspondence and announcements. We will begin with the mayor. Oh, I skipped over the correspondence. That's okay, we'll go back. Does any member of council have any correspondence or announcements? No? Okay, now we'll begin with the mayor.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, everyone. Just a couple things. The mayor's office and really all the departments at City Hall have been preparing for the upcoming spring and summer events that are right around the corner. First one, I just want to remind everyone, Shred and Recycle Day is Saturday, May 4th from 9 a.m. until 12 p.m. in the city's north parking lot off Chelmsford here. You can see our website for all the details. And an update on the Gold Resident Luncheon. We have 50 residents signed up for the Gold Resident Lunch, which are 50 new Gold residents. So it's been a while since we've held that event, so looks like we're catching up. So that should be a very well-attended event, and it's always a great event. And that takes place, of course, during Unity Days. May 1st, we're going to have 4 new police officers sworn in. That's going to be a big deal here at City Hall. And that's really all I have for now. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Are there any questions for the mayor? Okay, thank you. We will now move to Director of Law, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have a formal report, but I have a couple of things to note. First of all, I'd like to request that council call in an executive session after the legislation is considered tonight to discuss pending or imminent litigation. I would also, with reference to the motion that's on the agenda regarding the vote of the Planning Commission, I would request that since legal counsel are here for both the property owner to the north and the applicant, I'd like to hold their comments until that motion is considered, and to give them each 5 minutes in order to address council. I'd note that council has everything that's been submitted in writing, and as well as the Planning Commission record and the minutes. So I would request that you do it within 5 minutes. And then the vote can be taken after the legal counsel has made their presentation. Also, I would request that the rules be suspended on Resolution 2024-21 regarding the development agreement with Golden Gate. I've reached an agreement with the legal counsel for Golden Gate, and I can explain it at that point, but I'd like to see the rules suspended so that it could be acted on this evening, because they'd like to get moving on the demolition of the building. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Murphy? Thank you. Director of Finance, Mrs. Scully.
Thank you, Madam President. Just a quick update on the process of selling our bonds. We had our Moody's rating call today. So we're hoping to get the rating next week, and then we will be selling them. The plan is to sell them sometime the week of May 13th. And then on the agenda tonight is a budget amendment. We discussed it at our Finance Committee meeting last week, and I sent out an email last week regarding it. If you guys have any questions, but otherwise I have no further report.
Perfect, thank you. Are there any questions for Mrs. Scully? All right. We will now move to reports from any department directors. If you'd have a report, you can come to the podium and speak at this time. Chief Elliott.
I just have an update on Fire Citizens Academy. We do officially have it on the website. The program will start on August 28th. It will run 7 weeks. So anybody interested in attending, the application is also on the website. They can fill out an application, and then we'll get it and review them and process it. So we're very excited to have this up there, and look forward to working with our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. How many people are you going to accept?
We're gonna cut it off, I believe, at 10 or 12, just due to the fact that part of the program is CPR, and we have to have the proper student and instructor ratio for that. And plus, it just keeps it a little bit more small and intimate. So we're gonna have it 10 to 12 for our first class.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chuney?
Yes, thank you. Good evening. Couple updates from Engineering Department. Projects from last year, Crestwood, the contractor's been there the last couple of weeks. The trees are planted, the tree lawns are been graded and seeded. We've replaced a couple aprons that were done not to our specification. There was a water main break in the road. They came back and fixed the pavement for that. There's a couple other punch list items to do. Otherwise, that job we're going to be able to close out in the near future. As far as the road program from last year and the sidewalk program from last year, I know I got some complaints, and I sent letters and emails to the contractors that come back for restoration. So you'll see that in the next, if you get any complaints, the contractor has been notified, and they're going to be out there soon touching up the tree lawns behind the curbs and next to the sidewalks. As far as this year's programs go, the sidewalk program is on the agenda for tonight. The concrete road program has begun. They're mostly on Landerbrook right now. They did some saw cutting out on Mayfield Road. We had some issues with maintenance of traffic. We had a meeting this morning with the police chief and the contractor, and we're ironing those things out as far as the MOT goes. And I think we'll get that resolved before next week when they get on to Mayfield Road. And the road program for this year is advertised this week. So it has to advertise for 2 weeks. We'll open bids the following week and then be here in May for an award. So that's my update.
Perfect, thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Chuney? Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard? Directors? Good, okay. Thank you. We'll now move to reports of committees, commissions, and boards, beginning with the Building Committee, Mr. DeJohn. And he's not here this evening, so Mr. Mano.
I have no report.
Thank you. Finance and Audit Committee, Mr. Minor.
Keep a mic on, huh? Don't really have a report, just noting that we had our first quarterly Finance and Audit Committee meeting, 2 weeks ago? Time flies when you're having fun. The first meeting was, I think, a success. We even had a resident show up to it. These meetings are where we're going to review the city's financial performance on a quarterly basis against what we plan. And I don't want to steal Dana's thunder at all, but so far so good. So we are performing against budget as planned, and there are no surprises. So thank you.
Thank you. It was a good meeting. Thank you for organizing that. Mrs. Abetta, Legislative Committee.
No report.
Thank you. Public Works and Service, Mr. Balistreo.
Thank you. Thank you. No official report from any meeting, but Resolution 2024-22 is on the agenda, as Mr. Chuney stipulated, to award the contract for the 2024 sidewalk program. And I would encourage council to support it. And that's my report.
Thank you. Parks and Recreation, Mr. Mano.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We've extended the early bird pool passes one additional day through Saturday, April 27th from 12 to 4 p.m. Mayfield Heights residents can stop in the Aquatics and Community Center on Saturday between noon and 4 to purchase your season pass at the early bird pricing. Please bring the proper proof of residency to get this pricing. Regular season pricing will begin on Monday morning. For rates and registration requirements, please visit the recreation page or the website under Aquatic Center. The pool will officially open on Saturday, May 25th. The 2024 day camp is sold out and on a waiting list. The 2024 team camp is very close to selling out with very limited availability for the 6 weeks. Mayfield Heights Beautification Day is fast approaching on May 11th. Details can be found on the recreation page under the special events icon. Registration can be done by calling 440-442-2627 or online. If you wish to register for a tree, please follow the link on the page to secure one of the 55-gallon trees being given away. Be sure to visit the recreation page on the website for updates to information on the activities and living program guide. Click the icon on the recreation department page. Thank you. That's my report.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Mano? Okay. We'll now move to Safety and Transportation. Ms. Telbin.
No report.
Thank you. Board of Zoning Appeals, Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam President. There was no meeting, therefore no report.
Okay, thank you. And Planning Commission, Mr. Balestrea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No official report. Planning Commission did not meet last week for lack of agenda. However, as the law director stated, motion 1 is on the agenda this evening for the redevelopment of the CVS property on Mayfield. The minutes were in your packet from the April 1st meeting. The Planning Commission unanimously approved the final site plan. And that's my report.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Balestrea?
I do.
Mr. Minor?
Just one quick one. In the meeting minutes, I think you asked the question of if CVS remained and did not vacate, is there a plan to update the landscaping and the parking lot? Did you receive a response for that?
There was a response at the meeting that they would go ahead and do what they said they would do without CVS vacating the property.
Okay.
And they're here, so they can verify that. But yes, that work would be done.
Okay. I saw the response in the meeting minutes. It wasn't a confirmation, and so, all right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we will now move to comments from the public. Pursuant to City Code, each person will be allotted 5 minutes to speak, with a maximum of 30 minutes allotted for the entire public portion. If you are here in connection with an agenda item, this is your opportunity to address council. However, please note that this is not an opportunity for debate or slighted comments. If you would like to be heard this evening, please fill out a form located on the table at the public entrance. And during the public portion, I will call each of you up who's wishing to speak. Please state your name and address for the record and speak clearly into the microphone. It is now 7:15, and I will open up the public portion. So I have not received any papers. Does anyone wish to speak? Just raise your hand. Nobody? Okay. It is 7:16. I will close the public portion. We will begin with resolution number 2024-21. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution number 2024-21, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a development agreement with H.H. Golden Gate LLC, outlining the rights, duties, and obligations of the parties in connection with the partial redevelopment of a portion of Golden Gate Shopping Center and associated real property and declaring an emergency. Second reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Mano, second by Mr. Balestria. Roll call on the motion.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Ms. Talbin.
Yes.
Mr. Minor.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Balestria,
Second?
second by Mrs. Sabetta. This resolution was introduced and briefly discussed at the last council meeting. It was placed on first reading per Mr. Murphy's advisement because it was not ready to be voted on. It relates to the partial redevelopment of Golden Gate Shopping Center. A copy of the draft agreement was provided to in our council packet reviews. Mr. Murphy, is there any updates or anything you'd like to add?
Thank you. Yes, there is an update. The property owner originally suggested that they would have the structure demolished within 180 days of getting their demolition permit. Planning Commission indicated that they would prefer 90 days instead of the 180. So I put that to the attorney for Golden Gate, Mr. Sheldon Burns, and we went back and forth and finally came to a resolution that the property owner would have 120 days in order to demolish it. And if they ran into any unforeseen problems, and they're concerned about, it hasn't been used for 10 years, so they're not sure what the property is composed of, and there may be some waste that they're not aware of, hopefully not hazardous waste, but the building has been there for a long time. So anyway, if they run into any unforeseen problems, then they would request an extension of up to 120 days from the chief building official in order to extend that demolition. But they anticipate that they'll be able to do it in 120 days. So that's the only change. And apart from that, the agreement is well-written, and I recommend adoption.
Okay. Are there any questions for Mr. Murphy?
Yes. So just
Talbot.
to be clear, so what month would that be? Are we starting from what time to what time?
Well, if this is approved this evening, it's written as an emergency, so it can go into effect immediately.
Okay.
And then the property owner will come in and get the demolition permit and immediately start the demolition process. They'll have to hire a demolition contractor, which is part of the reason they said it would be tough doing it in 90 days. So they'd hire a demolition contractor, but they want to get it down and ready by the end of the summer.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Murphy. Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Minor.
Yes.
Ms. Talbin.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes, this resolution has been adopted. Resolution number 2024-22, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2024-22, a resolution awarding a contract to TC Construction for the 2024 sidewalk replacement program in accordance with the bid specifications and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Mano,
Second.
second by Mr. Balestria. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Ms. Talbin.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. Minor.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes, is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Balestria
Second?
and second by Mrs. Sabetta. This resolution is to be awarded for the 2024 sidewalk program. 6 sealed bids were received for the program on April 5th. Out of the bids that were received, TC Construction provided the lowest and best bid. This year's sidewalk program includes the following streets: Bonnie Lane, East Minor, West Minor, Kingswood Drive, And Mr. Chuney had spoke about this evening. Do you have any further comments, Mr. Balistrea or Mr. Chuney?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Balistrea.
the bid significantly came under what we allotted. It came in at $142,475, as is stated in the resolution. I spoke to Mr. Chuney. At the end of the road program, if there's no additional costs, then we would look to further do some additional blocks, if necessary, and utilize that $200,000 allotment based on 2024 concrete pricing. So I think it'd be frugal, it would be wise, I should say, to use those monies as we have them allocated during '24, instead of trying to do more in '25 when prices may be higher. So just to say all that, we may do additional work at the end of the year.
Okay. Thank you. Roll
Madam
call,
President,
Mrs. Sabetta.
thank you. In saying that, I see that you're working on Bonnie Lane, and I would appreciate it if you would reconsider or revisit the Maplewood sidewalk and the crossing.
Okay. Chief, Mayor, go ahead. I thought you were going to say, okay. Okay. So, Mr. Chuney, we can look at that area. I know the chief, we were talking about going out there to take a look at that area. So maybe we need to do that sooner than later. Okay, thank you. Any further comments or questions from council? All right, roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Ms. Tobin.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. Minor.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Resolution 2024-22 has been approved. Resolution number 2024-23, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2024-23, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Concord Road Equipment for a dump body, snowplow, and de-icing equipment for the new cab and chassis purchased for the service department and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sabetta,
Second.
and second by Mr. Mano. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Minor.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yeah.
My gosh.
Miss
Thanks for the update.
Hey, Chief.
Shootout?
Okay.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Ms. Tobin.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. Mano. And second
Second.
by, I'm sorry, Mr. Minor. Mr. Brunello sent a memo to council regarding the purchase request. Last month, City Council approved the purchase of a new cab and a chassis for the replacement of one service department truck. The department is now requesting approval for the dump truck, snowplow, and dicing equipment for this truck. The work will be completed by Concord Road Equipment under a state bid contract in the amount of $156,000. Due to the various factors, the grand total for the truck increased from $220,000 to well over that much. Yes,
Lots.
yes, to lots of money, $263,715. However, the service department would like to offset the cost increase by using funds that were allocated for the new Bobcat skid steer. They will save the requested purchase of the new Bobcat for next year. Does any member of council have any questions?
I do.
Ms. Talbot?
I have a few. So I know that we didn't have to go out for a competitive bid because
So,
it was,
Mr. Brunello, can you please come to the podium?
I knew that we didn't have to go out for a competitive bid because it was equal to the program This, I think it's a
It's
state
under state
program.
contract, correct.
State contract. Now that it's gone up 20%, is it still within, or should be really thinking about going out for a competitive bid?
No, it's under state contract regardless, so the number is not going to change. That number was based on an estimate from last year's, or 2 years ago's purchase.
Okay.
So I pretty much, I threw a number early on during the budget.
Okay.
And thought it was going to be near 220, and it ended up not being near 220 whatsoever,
Okay.
so.
Okay, so it was a 20% increase. And then with the Bobcat, I was curious, because the Bobcat also is part of a cost share, right?
No, this is a different machine. I budgeted for a Bobcat skid steer with this budget as well. I believe it was in the amount of $60,000. So that piece of equipment I would like to push off until next year. The piece of equipment that with the cost share was a mini excavator,
Okay,
which we're looking to purchase with our community cost share funds.
okay. And if by chance we didn't have the money next year, what would the impact of be to not be able to buy this Bobcat?
The skid steer,
Yeah,
we would just continue to maintain what we have and push it off for another year if need be.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay, thanks.
sure.
Madam Chair?
Mr. Balestra?
Chuck, what's the lead time on getting this now? From
The truck?
The truck?
The
Yeah.
truck, the actual cab chassis is projected third quarter, and the dump body de-icing equipment was fourth. So we're hoping that,
So still this year, we hope.
we're hoping to get it within this year, correct, yes,
Okay,
yeah,
thanks.
sure.
Any further questions from council for Mr. Brunello? Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Great. Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes.
Mr. Mano,
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea,
Yes,
Ms. Talbin,
Yes,
Mr. Minor,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. This resolution has been approved. Resolution number 2024-24, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution number 2024-24, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an employee assistance service program agreement and a business associate agreement with Ease at Work EAP LLC, formerly known as the Centers for Families and Children, ratifying and approving all actions taken to date by the mayor to continue said services and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Moved?
Moved by Mrs. Sabetta and second by Mr. Mano. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Mano,
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea,
yes,
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes.
Ms. Talbin,
yes,
Mr. Minor,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
move,
Moved by Mr. Balestrea. Second by Mrs. Sabetta. The city currently provides employee assistance services for its employees. In order to continue these services, it is necessary to enter into an employee assistance service program agreement and a business associate agreement with Ease at Work EAP LLC. The current agreement expires on March 31st, 2024. The cost of these services to continue shall not exceed $4,000. And Mrs. Augustine has provided a memo that was shared to council outlining the specific benefits of this resource and associated costs. Are there any questions? Mrs. Augustine is here this evening, if anyone has any questions for her. Did you want to maybe go over the program a little bit of what services they have? Thank you.
So we started off in 2016 with Ease at Work. They've been a great partner. They have a comprehensive website that employees can visit for templates for rental agreements or living wills or articles and webinars on financial resources, legal resources, fitness, nutrition. They have all kinds of services available on their website. They also offer our employees 3 free consultations with a financial analyst or with an attorney, or with, if you're looking for elder care, you can get 3 free sessions with a professional. So it's very helpful. We also have mental health services, which is becoming more and more popular ever since COVID, and people are more willing to seek assistance, which has been very good. We've seen our participation in calling EAP for assistance increase, as well as visits to their website. It's confidential, so I don't get any information, but we can see that the numbers are increasing. They also, I'm trying to remember the name of the program. The Federal Motor Carries, it's the FMCSA, and it's the federal program where our CDL drivers have to, have random drug testing. And we had a random drug testing class and reasonable suspicion class for our supervisors in our service department, so they help with things like that as well.
Great. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Minor,
Yes.
Ms. Tolbin,
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea,
Yes.
Mr. Mano,
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes, this resolution has been adopted. We will now move to ordinances, beginning with ordinance number 2024-9. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ordinance number 2024-09, an ordinance amending the original appropriations ordinance number 2023-30 for the current expenses and other expenditures for the City of Mayfield Heights, State of Ohio, for the fiscal year ending December 31, 2024, specifically the transfer and supplemental appropriation of funds in various accounts and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. Mano,
Second?
second by Mrs. Sabetta. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Ms. Tolbin,
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes.
Mr. Minor,
Yes.
Mr. Mano,
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes, is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Moved by Mr. Minor and second by Mr. Balestrea. This ordinance is to amend the appropriations for the city's 2024 budget. Mrs. Scully sent an email to council on Tuesday, April 16th regarding the forthcoming of the amendments in the budget amendment number 1. These amendments were also discussed at the Finance and Audit Committee meeting on April 15th. Mrs. Scully, do you have anything further to add?
I do not.
Okay, are there any questions for Mrs. Scully?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Balestrea?
I'll ask the Finance Director. We have an appropriation for $4,000 for the ARPA funds, and I know we have to spend those by calendar year end. What remains in that account?
So this 4,000 gives us the ability to appropriate our full cash balance, and we're about 99% encumbered. We have to have all of our funds encumbered by the end of this year, but they don't actually have to be spent by the end of this
Okay.
year. So once the generator project and the median and that stuff, we have final costs on that, we'll be able to know what small pot we have left to allocate for another expense this year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Okay. Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Ms. Tolbin,
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes.
Mr. Minor,
Yes.
Mr. Mano,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. This motion has now been approved. We will now move to motions, beginning with motion A. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A motion to approve the final site plan for a redevelopment plan for the CVS building located at 5901 Mayfield Road.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved?
Moved by Mrs. Sabetta
Second.
and second by Mr. Balestrea.
I'll go.
Okay.
At this time, I know that legal counsel for two interested parties are here. We'll give them the opportunity for a 5-minute presentation, beginning with the applicant, and 5 minutes, and I'll give you a heads up when you have a minute left.
Before we get to that point, Mr. Murphy, I'm fearful we might have had a misunderstanding. My understanding was that we were going to be presenting a little bit more than 5 minutes. We've got some introductory remarks from myself. Mr. Landis, the property owner, is going to speak for a few moments, and then our architect and our engineer would like to speak as well.
I was going to note that the council is in receipt of the record, the minutes from the Planning Commission meeting, your correspondence, Ms. Wilson's correspondence, and is going to give you the opportunity to make your 5 minutes, but
I recognize that. I think that's a lot of homework for council. I think sometimes it's important to hear from the applicant and from the professionals we've engaged to directly explain the thought process we've gone through and the efforts we've taken over the last year to get to the point where we're at today.
when we get to 5 minutes, then we'll poll council to see if they want to let you continue, which is the normal procedure for public comment.
Respect, I understand that. Madam President, is there any leeway there at the outset, just so that if we are only afforded 5 minutes, I could tailor my remarks at the outset? Is that something perhaps we could, would there be an entertainment motion to allow for 5 minutes for myself and then collectively 15 minutes for the group on behalf of the applicant? Would that be acceptable?
I think, what? I can make a motion for that. For council. Is it okay if he has that time? I need a first and a second.
20 minutes would be great.
20 minutes.
Okay.
Are we going to learn anything new? Did I need to turn on my mic?
Yeah.
Are we going to learn anything new that has not been provided to us that 20-minute allotment would be necessary?
I would say it's important to hear and respond to both the significance of the traffic impact study and the interest of Mr. Landis, who is effectively the owner and the operator of the property itself.
Okay, I would actually rely on you for that particular.
I don't have an issue. I mean,
Okay.
if they want to provide their arguments to council, then whatever time we want to allot is fine with me.
Thank you. And I would note that this is something that hypothetically it could result in an appeal to the courts, and we'd like to preserve our right, and I think it's in our interest to ensure that we make an appropriate record of the proceedings.
So there was a first by Mr. Balestrea, a second by Mr. Minor. So I just need an all in favor. Oh,
Aye.
I'm sorry. Wait, hold on.
I just have a clarification. So if we're going to extend the time here, are we going to also be fair and extend it for the other person? I
If
just want to make sure.
necessary.
So I just want to clarify that.
Right.
Okay.
So there's been a motion, Mr. Balestrea. I need a second to allow them to speak.
I'll second now.
Okay. Second by Mr. Minor. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Your time's been granted.
Thank you so much. I recognize that makes me easily the least popular person in the room, and I hope it didn't affect anyone's opinions on the project itself. I will be brief with mine to ensure that everyone else has an opportunity to speak. Your agenda has in front of you, although it's indicated there's one motion, there's actually two motions that we're asking for. These are two separate projects. The first is the redevelopment of the existing building where CVS is located, and the second is the construction of a 1,995 square foot quick service restaurant in the underutilized parking lot where the Popeyes currently sits. Now, there are two different motions we'll be asking for approval on in that front. We've been before you way back in November of last year, and we've been before a number of your bodies in the time before that, working through this project. Although you haven't seen me in a few months and you haven't heard from us in a few months, that's not because we haven't been working with the city and with the team of professionals here to ensure that the projects we're asking for your approval for are a win for the city, a win for our neighbors, and a win for Landis Group and the people who will be visiting the site in the future. So with that in mind, we've got your Planning Commission's final approval, your Architectural Board of Review's given us final approval. We've engaged a traffic engineer who's conducted a traffic impact study. That study was submitted and reviewed to your traffic engineer, who's approved our study and indicated that there will be no substantial impact to the traffic on Mayfield Road as a result of this project. With the balance of my time, I'm going to introduce briefly Mr. Brett Landis, Mr. Tommy Chesness, and Mr. Chris Copeland. Each of those individuals will be speaking briefly on various aspects, both of the project, of the property, and the benefits that will result as a result of your approval of that project. All we ask that you do today is consider our approval and look at the evidence that is substantial, reliable, and probative to ensure that your vote is based on that, not based on speculation, not based on hypotheticals that might or might not occur, but based on concrete evidence like what we're going to put before you tonight. Does that make sense? So with that, I will turn things over to Mr. Brett Landis. And while that's
Can
while
you
Brett is introducing
Just state your name and address for the record.
My name, Ben Chinaki, 1375 East 9th Street, 10th floor, Cleveland, Ohio, 14114.
Perfect, thank you.
And respectfully, if our witnesses could be sworn, just as a matter of record, we'd like to do that as well, please.
It's not necessary to swear them. It's not a quasi-judicial proceeding.
Good evening. My name is Brett Landis. I'm with the Landis Group. It's good to see you again. Last time I was here, I think I had about 5 minutes. I don't know that I'll need more than that tonight. I do want to address one thing that you brought up, Mr. Minor. The CVS leases are very unique, and they're unique because of the way they were financed. And I'm going to back up just a second to give a little bit of history because I want you all to know who I am and my relationship with CVS and what I've done in the retail business. I started with CVS working with them in 1996 when I was with the Staubach company, Roger Staubach. We developed a very unique bond program that goes back to my days in the 80s working the bond business. And from 1996 through 2012, I was the managing partner of a group and a company that acquired and bought over 4,800 CVS stores across America. So I know them pretty well, and I've been very active in that business. Because of all those acquisitions, and I'm going to address your question specifically about CVS and the way the leases are drafted. Because we did bonds, those leases we gave CVS had all the authority on their leases and their properties to do what they want and how they want. So they controlled everything. So whether it's landscaping or any future development or anything like that. Now this is if they stay. If they don't, then it's irrelevant because they're gone. So I have spoken to CVS that if they were to stay, would they allow me to go in as the owner and to make improvements, landscaping, whatnot, whatever. Of course, they would be happy for me to do that. But I just want to clarify that point and make sure you understood that's CVS sort of controls that in the leases.
Can you do me a favor and talk closer to the mic? We're having a few people have a hard time hearing you up here.
Yes, I will, certainly. Is that better?
Talk.
Is that better? When I began buying the CVS stores many years ago, I bought them with long-term leases, not necessarily expecting to get into the development business. But I am in it now. And we are doing repositioning of CVS stores all over the country, from Oregon to California to Florida, Ohio. It's just a nature of the business because CVS has and continues and will continue at some point on stores vacating those stores. So we have developed a very good program with a lot of tenants and our ability to go in and reposition these properties in a way that is beneficial to the communities. And one thing that I think is important for you to know about my company and the way I look at things, it's very important for us to pay attention to the details and to make sure that whatever project or whatever we're working on, we make it something that is beneficial to the community. We try to make sure that we pay attention to details. We listen to the community, we listen to the councils. I will tell you that right now we have, this property is one of 27 that I have in a portfolio that I own. I chose this property and I've held it for 24 years. And the reason that I held it is that this, along with all the other ones in that portfolio, I want to give to my kids. So when we talk about what I want to do here and what I'd like to try and to accomplish here, it's not an economical decision. It is. Obviously, everything in the real estate business is, and that is a factor, but it's also a sense of pride because I eventually want my children to own these assets. And so what I do and what I try to do is to create an environment, a development, a repositioning that is aesthetically pleasing, that meets the needs of the community, that provides what you want, which is a pedestrian-friendly development, which I think we have, that directs traffic. I mean, there's a video, or can we? It's queued up. It's.
You guys will. Oh, we're having a tap.
Okay. We did a drone footage of you haven't seen it, and I'd like for you at some point, all of you to see it, a drone footage for several weeks of the parking lot and the traffic. I think you've seen it. And it's really just a big, giant, empty piece of concrete where people are going back and forth. There's no direction. And what we're doing and what we are planning, and you will see, and you have seen, is that there is a clear direction for automobile traffic, for pedestrians. We've created open spaces with patios to create an environment where it's appealing to sit around and visit. We've got extensive landscaping. We're going to repave the entire parking lot and stripe it so that it's very clear boundaries on where cars should and will be. We have lighting that is going to be state-of-the-art halogen lighting in the parking lot, around the building. I mean, it's going to be, again, it goes back to the attention to detail. And the most successful builders, developers that I've seen in my career are those who, like a guy named Caruso in California. He's immensely successful, but you go to his properties, and it's the street lights, it's the lamps, it's the detail. And those are the things that really matter, and those are the things that are important to me. Not just because, and it's not cheap. I'm putting millions of dollars into this, my money, personally. But I'm doing it because I intend to be here for a long time. I intend to be a part of your community, again, for another 20 years. Hopefully, if I'm around that long, we'll see. As many kids as I have, I don't know if I'll make it that long. In any case, I asked Ben to let me come up here and talk initially, and this is the amount of time I'll take. Unless you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those. Of all the projects that we have going on across the country, this is the only city council meeting that I go to. And I don't know why it is, because I guess I really want this to work. And you have my word that I will put everything I have into making this perfect and do it right. I haven't been to Palm Beach Gardens. I haven't been to Medford, Oregon. I haven't been to Huntington Beach. These are all other projects, CVS's, that I'm repositioning. So I want to look you in the eyes, and I want you to know that I'm going to be involved in this, and I want this to be done right. And you have my word that I'll do that. So I guess I have this whole agenda here, and there's no reason to go through it if 5 minutes is sort of the time. But if you have any questions or you'd like to ask anything, feel free to do it. If not now or later or at some time, please, you can always feel free to give me a call. Thank you.
Is there any
Thank
chance
you.
that we can get that I technically,
They think there might be an electrical issue why the light won't turn on. I apologize.
okay. Well, do you want to turn around? We can show you briefly. This is some drone footage that Mr. Landis shot. It's not the best. If you have some eyes, you can see it. This is a typical business week of vehicular traffic. This 45-second montage shows you how much traffic is actually on the site over the course of a regular work week. And what you can see is this vast empty area where there are no cars parked. That's where we intend to put that's where we intend to put the Popeyes. What you also see is you'll see people walking across from here at the CVS to the back at this property. They're not walking in a safe way. They're just crossing in a random spot. There's also vehicles that are occasionally driving across the pathway as well. These types of health and safety risks are part of the reason why we want to redevelop the property the way we are. We want to have a pedestrian-friendly site, and the current site is not nearly as pedestrian-friendly as what we've proposed and what you have in front of you. So the purpose of this video is just to give you an idea of what we see on the site currently, which is not what we want, and it's not consistent with what your design manual calls for during redevelopment of a site. So the purpose, when Landis looks at a property like this and he makes a plan to redevelop, is to eliminate unsafe risks like the ones we've got here. So that was the purpose of the video. Mr. Chesney, if you'd like to come up. If we have,
Any questions? Very good.
At this point, are there any questions from any member of council? Ms.
I want an answer to this letter from Braden. I want to know if he ever got an answer on this.
Okay.
The traffic would not be impacted. And I wonder.
Mr.
Okay.
Manos, sir, I believe Braden's question is answered above in the email about it. So the chain is in reverse order. So I believe the email asks a question, and then the top is the response indicating that the traffic study shows that there will not be a substantial impact on Mayfield Road.
So the question was asked by Mr. Thomas. Will
Yeah,
the,
that's the email chain, yes, sir. Yes,
right.
sir.
And then if you can recite the question for the people that are watching. 'cause
Perhaps
they'll-
to make it a little bit easier, and in light of the IT problems we have I have some binders here that are Mr. Chesney's slides, as well as some of the correspondence that's referenced within. If you'd allow it, I can pass those out while Tommy prepares his slides. That might make it a little easier.
That's fine. Mhm.
Should I state my name?
Yeah, please state your name and address
My
for the
name is
record.
Tommy Chestnut. I'm with the architecture firm Onyx Creative. The address is 25001 Emery Road, Suite 400 in Cleveland, 44128.
Perfect, thank you. Thank you.
So my portion of the presentation is largely visual, but I think you guys have seen the renderings and the images, so I'm just gonna kind of quickly talk through them. Also just turn my laptop so you guys, I don't know if you can even see from back there. But, basically, Mr. Landis and Mr. Chinaki have made the points.
Put it on the table.
Oh.
Let people see it.
Okay.
If you lay your screen flat so that camera can get it.
The same situation.
Gonna try to see if we can,
Ben, you might have to hold this for me.
I can gladly do that. Consider myself, this is what I
Let me
went to law school for, holding these.
There you go. That way the audience can, no,
there's a
no,
camera
hold
right
it over the camera, right there, and then it'll project
In the ceiling.
In the ceiling,
over your head.
right above you.
Am I,
There you go.
Yes, so turn it the other way, so, perfect.
We can see it, but we can see it on our screens. I don't know if the audience can.
Okay, so just to kind of paint the visual of what's already been said today, this site is largely underutilized right now. It's an enormous swath of asphalt that really is going against what your current design guidelines call for. Back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, when these sites were developed, the whole intention was push the buildings back off the street, auto-centric, cars first. And what your design guidelines have asked of us as design professionals is to fix that now. And a huge way of doing that is getting buildings up to the street, adding landscaping, increasing the pedestrian nature of it, in large part just to reduce the hostility of walking along these stretches. So it's largely uncomfortable to walk along a sidewalk where you've got 35-mile-an-hour cars on one side and then an empty parking lot on the other. So the development that we are proposing does just that and brings a new building up to the street to increase the utilization of the site, both with an extraordinary amount of landscape and also a building up to the front of the street edge. A lot of developments throughout the city have been doing that, kind of filling in the missing teeth in the streetscape. So this is just another opportunity to fill in the streetscape of Mayfield Road. Another thing I'll point out here is the pedestrian pathways that we worked throughout the site. So currently, there's no pedestrian walkway to the building, our neighbor to the north. And we've designed this site to have a walkway from the sidewalk at Mayfield Road and get the walkway as far back into the site as we can before we run into an easement area that we can't modify. So that was a part of this. Sorry, just clicking through here. Here's another aerial of the site showing just again the vast parking lot. And then if you want to click down, our proposed redevelopment and actually revitalization of this parcel. Okay. We had made remarks on the lighting, so we're going to be upgrading the lighting throughout. It's going to be much brighter, but we've also made we've designed it to be fully shielded so there won't be any light bleed into the neighboring residential area. And if you want to keep clicking through, click one more. Just some ground level views here showing the beautification of the site, really amping up the landscaping, creating modern and nice facades along Mayfield Road. Here's a view of one of the 3 patio areas that are going to be on the site. This patio area will be specific to the tenant on the end cap, but we have 2 other patio areas in the site that are just for the general public. So the one here on this end of the building is kind of in shadow there, but that's just a pedestrian seating area on the edge of the building. Then there's another pedestrian seating area in front of the Popeyes. Just some more views showing the enhanced landscaping. And then this slide here shows our intention to rebuild the existing monument sign. It's currently non-illuminated sign, so we're building a brand new sign, large illuminated to help get eyes to the back of the center, to the neighbor to the north. We're showing here a large Dollar General sign, and that's at our owner's expense to build that for the neighboring property. And this is a view from that neighboring property to the north that I just spoke about. So this is our proposal. This would be standing at the Dollar General, looking out across the site. So as you can see, the site is filled in. There's landscaping. You can see the pedestrian access way there in the middle to get up to the road. And then this next image is the view of the existing condition. As we've stated, not pedestrian friendly at all. There's no walkway at all to get from this building up to the street. No, that's good. Go next. And then this slide just illustrates the sight lines from the street. There was some discussion at some point about sliding the building back, and I believe there was a concern from the neighbor of the north to the sight lines, and this just illustrates that actually the farther the building, or the closer the building gets to Mayfield Road, the wider the view angle of the property to the north. So it's actually, it satisfies the city's design guidelines to put the building up near the road, but it's also advantageous to our neighbor behind us to have that building up near the road because it opens that view corridor. This is a very technical looking document. You can skip to the next one that just shows the light levels of the new lighting. And then here's a graphic representation showing that the light won't bleed past the property lines, but will fully illuminate the whole site. And then next up to speak is Chris Copeland, our civil engineer. He's going to speak about the site plan, but if you guys have any architectural questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Respectfully, while Chris is preparing, I'll note that on the site plans that you've seen, we heard you loud and clear in November when you told us you didn't like where the garbage was located. And so we've taken the garbage away from the building and we've put it into the rear portion of the parking lot, or the rear portion of the parking lot. We tried to find a location that was similar to and mirrored what other restaurants have done in town. And we noted that the Chick-fil-A and the Raising Cane's had theirs offset from the building in the back, and so we tried to push it back to a location similar to that. Mr. Copeland, if you'd like to weigh in on the technical side of things.
Name is Chris Copeland. I work for the Manick and Smith Group, the civil engineering firm on the project. Address is 20600 Chagrin Boulevard, Suite 500, Shaker Heights, Ohio, 44122. As I stated, I am the civil engineer on the project. I work with a lot of other design professionals in the engineering and surveying industry on this project. I had various conversations with our traffic engineers that are experts in their field on this project. So as we want to evaluate this site, we wanted to look at a couple different areas in particular. If you can start with the existing conditions. So the existing conditions survey that we prepared for this project, as you can see, shows a large area, a large asphalt parking lot in the center of our property that is heavily striped. However, due to the age of the site, the striping has faded. That evidence is justification for why there's a lot of traffic that's not really abiding by where they can and cannot park on the property, and they're going diagonally across the site, causing safety issues on the site for both of other vehicular traffic as well as the pedestrians that are visiting the site today. Next one. As was mentioned, the site plan is heavily been revised based on feedback from the city as well as the adjacent neighbor. Again, wanting to make sure that we were satisfying everybody's concerns and making sure that we're addressing them appropriately. The dumpster enclosure, again, was slid to the back of the property, the back of the lot for the Popeyes. Access for the trash enclosure all of the trash enclosures is actually off of Mayfield Ridge. And the exit path for that is out what is the eastern entrance drive, which is a shared access drive for the properties. The other aspects that I'll highlight on this site plan are the parking spaces to the north of the Popeyes area are going to be restriped, but we are maintaining the same number of parking stalls that are there today. They're complying with what is required in the easement for that shared parking. Next slide. So this really looks at the overall parking of the area and shows that the parking fields are there, shows the parking that's shared as well as the parking that is only part of the adjacent neighbor's property in the back and along their west side of the building. Next slide. So next slides really outline, the traffic and the vehicular movements on the property. So one of the comments that we got during the Planning Commission was concerns of vehicles coming out of the Popeyes drive-through and potentially backing up into the property as they're trying to exit onto Mayfield Road. We heard those comments. We heard the appeal to us to potentially put in some signage to discourage that movement. So we're going to put in signage that says that anybody leaving the drive-through must turn right. That will force them to go out to the Mayfield Ridge to the signalized intersection at Mayfield Ridge and Mayfield Road, thus alleviating any of the backup that would be potentially caused by this drive-through. That being said, the counts for the drive-through based on our traffic impact study indicated that there would not be sufficient cars coming out of the drive-through, which would cause a significant backup into the site regardless of this restriction. Go ahead, next slide. Other traffic movements that we highlighted are desired movements into the mobile-only drive-through on the west end cap of the current CVS building. There will be a mobile order drive-through, and what that really means is, in today's technology age, everybody uses their cell phones, everybody uses applications to order their meals. This one in particular, you order your meal, you're indicated when to come pick your food up, you go through the drive-through, it's a quick process. You go, you tell the person at the window, my order is this number, they hand you your bag of food and you're gone. It's a real quick process. So while our our queuing that was shown on our site plan shows 8 cars instead of the code required 10. We feel that 8 is sufficient for this style of drive-through. The Popeyes drive-through, we actually have, without going into that access drive to leave the site to the eastern driveway, we actually are able to fit 12 cars in there without impacting that movement. Beyond that, we can get an additional 6 cars before we get to the shared access that is currently between the CVS and the existing parking lot. Yeah, so the trash truck movements here easily makes it in and out. Delivery vehicles are done during off hours when businesses are typically not heavily visited by patrons. So the delivery truck, we were showing it turning and going out to Mayfield Road. However, there's potentially other alternatives for that movement, specifically going out the same way as the trash truck goes. Next slide.
Can I interrupt for just a minute? I do have a question with this. So the middle driveway,
Yes.
if you're coming through the drive-through with the new tenant, that new area,
Yes.
would you only be able, is that the area you can only turn right out of?
Yes, so the drive-through, as you're exiting the drive-through from the Popeyes and you're coming towards the CVS heading west.
The one on Mayfield Road?
She means the
Entrance
driveway
to
on
the,
Mayfield Road, the main driveway.
the entrance to go into the
Oh,
drive-through
so
for
the
Popeyes.
access drive off of
Yes.
Mayfield Road, that is not being restricted.
So people can turn, that's a lot, coming in and out of that front driveway to cross over to, to head east on Mayfield Road. Because there's a light right there. Yeah, but
So,
how could you go to Mayfield Ridge? How could you go to Mayfield Ridge when you've come through the drive-through?
You go this way.
You go back around again?
Exactly.
I'm sorry, I don't quite understand your question. Is it a question of being able to leave the site via that driveway onto Mayfield Road?
Yes.
Okay. So based on the traffic impact study that we prepared, the average time for leaving the site is less than 2 minutes to be able to exit that site based on traffic studies and traffic rules and regulations for preparing a traffic impact study. The warrants did not warrant restricting any of the movements at that driveway.
Well, if it becomes an issue, can we look at that area?
You could consider,
Okay, and then, okay, continue, I'm sorry. I just wanted,
It's all right.
that's, we were talking about the movement
Yeah,
through
no.
there, and that's an important area, because it will be very busy. And there's a light
Absolutely.
at Mayfield Ridge,
yeah.
really close to that area. So if you have traffic trying to cross through to get, to go east on Mayfield Road, when you've got a stoplight and a
Absolutely.
line of traffic, how are they going to get through? It just seems like a lot right there.
No, I understand the question, and if there was only that one exit, I would agree, I would completely agree with you. Signage on the site will distribute that traffic flow to the traffic light on Mayfield Ridge and Mayfield.
Okay.
Next slide. So we've talked a little bit about the view triangles. So the prior view triangles that Tommy presented in his exhibit was really from the vantage point at the street facing the site. This exhibit really is looking at, as you're driving from the right heading west on Mayfield Road, what is your real view angle as a driver and being a safe driver down Mayfield Road? You're not going to be turning your head and looking to the side to see what's in the back of a shopping plaza. Your view angle is measured from the center line of where you're looking 30 degrees and then another 20 degrees, assuming that you turn your head 20 degrees to see what's in that peripheral view. Beyond that, you yourself as a driver would be posing a safety concern for the other drivers on the road, as you would not be able to see the vehicle in front of you should they apply their brakes.
Mr. Minor
Just a
has a
quick
question, I'm sorry.
It's my understanding we've exceeded 30 minutes at this point?
31.
31 minutes in this, so if we don't have any particular questions, I don't know if we necessarily need to go through the entire plan as we are currently doing. That's just some tossing it out there as an opinion for feedback on it. So,
We're happy to wrap it up now. We recognize.
Yeah, we're
okay.
about done.
All right, so I do have one question, which is probably funny, right? See, you got a chuckle out of it. The only question I have is on the plan, the pedestrian walkthrough ends into parking spots. So I'm assuming there's a reason for that. So if you guys could address that, that would be my only question.
Somebody else's property.
Yeah, wow. But to state it,
So the reason why the pedestrian traffic and the pedestrian walkway stops where it does, it stops lining up with a stripe between parking stalls. And that's strategic so that as you're walking up that way, you can continue your path and you're not walking into a bumper of a car. Now, that being said, the reason why we can't extend that traffic pattern for pedestrians further into the site has to do with the shared parking easement on the property. So we have to maintain a certain number of parking stalls, I believe the number is 57 if I'm not mistaken, on this. And if we were to separate those parking stalls to provide a means of ingress further into the property, we would have to eliminate up to 3 parking stalls to make that feasible.
thank you.
Mr. Balestrea.
I just have one question, gentlemen. It was my concern on the Planning Commission, the ingress off of the Mayfield Ridge, and you addressed it as far as the stacking, being that it's just a pickup type of operation. If some for unforeseen circumstance that tenant doesn't stay there, I would be concerned that the only type of tenant that could go back into that place, would be somebody that had a similar type of business. Because as you know, if the stacking occurs too greatly, it's going to be into the ingress line of people coming off of Mayfield Ridge. So, we approved it based on what you're telling us is the tenant's going to be, pickup only. But I just want to make sure for the record, you understand that if a different tenant comes in for some reason in the future, that'll be an issue. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, interestingly enough, I have a Skechers going into several of my stores, and they have now come up with a new concept where you can call in, retailers are doing this, not just food service companies, where retailers, you order online, and then you have time to come and pick up your shoes. So that's where it's headed. So it's not just food, it's Skechers, it's the Gap, whatever, and so it's curbside pickup, and this will be the Palm Beach Gardens store that I was telling you about with Skechers. This will be the first one they're doing. And they're pretty jazzed about it, I think. So the other ones are going to keep doing that because they've gotten such a positive reception for that kind of.
Yeah, I didn't say necessarily food. I just said another tenant.
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I
yeah.
understand
Well, yeah. And there are.
it'd have to be something very similar.
Yeah.
Our understanding, the operation of that building's use is limited to the pickup only location somewhere. It would be an expansion of use that would require your permission if it were to
Right.
potentially be converted to a more intensive drive.
Right. Thank you.
Any further questions? I just have one quick question about the monument sign. Is it going to be the same size? I noticed that you're having everybody's tenant. Will it be the same size as what's there now?
Is that the lit sign that you're referring
Yes.
to? The base is, I don't have the figures exactly in my mind, but when I drew this, the concept was to be the same scale and size, just lit. And that's what's new and improved about it.
Okay.
we can limit it to be the same size.
My only concern is visibility for cars pulling up to that space and then seeing pedestrians walk across. I mean, there's a sidewalk there now, of course, but there may be a lot more going on there now.
Yep.
So just make sure that, I would just want to make sure the visibility of seeing over that, or it's far back enough that we could see people coming into that area and crossing.
Yeah, we'll certainly take that into consideration.
Thank you.
2 points before we wrap up. Just broadly, I want to ensure that, Mr. Manager, did we address your question with respect to the approval from the traffic engineer? You had a question about the email from Mr. Comer to Mr. Thomas?
That was answered.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure we addressed that. And then I think we're all done here.
Yep.
In
Thank you.
closing, we believe this is an appropriate project, and we think it's going to be a win for everyone. We think that it's going to result in an increase in people, both to the property and it'll be a significant benefit to the neighbors to the north as well. So with that, we appreciate your time, and thank you for your generosity in giving us the extra time. Thank you.
Thank you. Please state your name and address.
Yes, thank you. My name is Robin Wilson. I am with UB Greensfelder, and I represent Mayfield Ridge Limited Partnership. Our firm is located at 1660 West 2nd Street, Suite 1100, Cleveland, Ohio. As I indicate, our firm represents Mayfield Ridge Limited Partnership, and it owns the Mayfield Ridge Shopping Center at 5933 Mayfield Road, just behind or to the north of this property that we're here tonight debating this site plan. Council President Snyder, and Council, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak to you before you vote on this motion. Mr. Murphy, thank you for allowing me this time to talk outside of the public comment. We have set forth our concerns in detail in 2 letters, both one dated April 15th and one dated April 19th, which I would like to make sure is part of the record. I think it is, but if not, I have 2 copies I can give to you. We ask that you deny the final site plan as it's being presented to you. There are a couple reasons for this. And to be quite honest with you, when I heard your question, Council President, with regard to the turning coming out of the drive-through, I became a little bit more confused. What I do know from looking at this site plan, and as we've explained to you in these letters, the traffic flow into this redevelopment is going through this center lane. The center lane is pushing the cars to the right into this drive-through for the Popeyes, and it's pushing traffic into the left for the drive-through for this pickup restaurant. And then it's bringing the traffic back through this center lane. Now, today they talked as though, or tonight there was some indication that maybe coming out of the drive-through, they're going to be turning right, which doesn't, maybe there'll be directional signage. Well, that doesn't make any sense because cars are going to be coming into this site. They're going to be cars coming through this drive-through. They're either going left across the traffic, then trying to get out onto Mayfield Road, or they're going right in front of traffic that's coming in to go back to the back of the site or the north of the site to come out Mayfield Ridge. It doesn't make any sense. This is not a pedestrian-friendly site plan. This is not really even a safe site plan. When you think about the 3 pedestrian walkways, they're going across, the main one, the one going to the Popeyes, is going across the drive-through lanes. And then it's ending at a curb of some sort to go then walk across a parking lot, which they say they're trying to get rid of, into my client's shopping center. So, you know, really, you have amazing design standards. I'm so impressed with what you're trying to do to Mayfield Heights. And you are on the right path. You know, we can be some of these beautiful cities that, you know, the applicant talks about where his other CVS stores are located, and that's what you're trying to do with your corridor, make it a pedestrian-friendly, user-friendly place. But these drive-throughs and the way this traffic is going to be going through this site and pushing people through and back out onto Mayfield Road, and they're going to be able to go east or west onto Mayfield Road, and there's going to be cars backed up trying to get in. They're saying 60 cars could go through the drive-through while 10 people are sitting inside the Popeyes. So, if, that, I don't know how many times a day that's going to happen, but you're going to have a lot more traffic than you have there right now. So I think that you have to be really concerned when that you talk about approving a plan that has this type of security in it, this type of traffic flow. We are not at all opposed. My client is in no way opposed to beautifying this property. All the amenities that they're talking about putting in are beautiful. It'll be really nice. But it's just the drive-throughs, this double drive-through, and the traffic patterns are very, very dangerous. I mean, if you look at your tab 2, which applicant was very nice to give to you, and you look at the third page of what's in tab 2, you can basically see the site plan and how the drives are going to go through it, and it's very smashed into that. And if you look at they talked about the 10 parking places that are right next to the drive-through when you come in. When you think about that, 5 of those parking places, this is on the third page of tab 2, 5 of those parking places are going to be backing out into the drive. That's how they're going to get out of those parking spots. They're going to have to back up into this drive. And that's problematic. So not only are you hurting the ability for people to come into the parking lot safely, you're hurting the people who are going to be parking in the lot because they could get hit when they come out. With regard to the traffic study, and if you look at the very tab 4 of your packet that they gave you, your black binder, they've highlighted the first 2 paragraphs where that Mr. Corner was responding to the questions regarding the traffic study. And he agreed, it's not going to be that much worse than it currently is and all that. But to answer your question, Councilman, if you look at the 3rd paragraph, really what he is saying is there are too many conflict points here. You have 4 conflict points coming out of here. You have Mayfield Ridge that has the stop sign. You have 2 more, our client's access road, the Eastern Drive. You have the middle drive, and then you have another drive that's kind of off the site, but it kind of accesses it. 4 conflict points coming onto Mayfield Road from these drive-throughs. And he even says here, it is our opinion that any time when development sites along Mayfield Road with direct access to Mayfield Road are redesigned, the possibility of relocating the access driveways to the adjacent minor streets and closing or restricting the Mayfield Road access points should be considered in order to reduce the number of conflict points along Mayfield Road. So you have 4 conflict points, traffic coming out, jamming onto Mayfield Road. You've got a traffic light there, people coming east and west on a 4-lane, not a highway, 4-lane road with a turning lane in the middle. Got a lot of traffic. You know how much traffic is on Mayfield Road. It's a lot. I think 30,000 maybe, like at the corner of 271 and Mayfield Road. So even your assistant fire chief has expressed concerns, and that the ambulances could not really even get in there in a really great way. So on the site plan review on 8/21/2023, Assistant Chief Michael Braccio said, the site plan for the proposed restaurant on the property does not appear to allow for parking for emergency vehicle access. The sidewalk area and the cafe location are not suitable for an ambulance crew with a stretcher or fire crew. The rear of the occupancy is not reasonably or reliably accessible due to the location of the drive-through lane. Ambulance parking on Mayfield is dangerous and should be avoided. They did address this. The applicant then addressed it on March 2024 in response to questions from Mr. Thomas. Chris Copeland, the project manager, said in response to a question, I'm assuming regarding the walk that is not safe for pedestrians, that is now on the plan. He wanted to know why that entrance drive is there since it's not safe for pedestrians. And basically, Mr. Copeland responded, per the attached comment letter from fire department, we are required to provide means of ingress and egress into the building in the case of an emergency. The ramp and walk shown in the plan is the only acceptable emergency point that they can have on the site. So, we've got a lot going on this site. Approve the site, but you can make it with nice parking. You don't have to, you can improve it. You don't have to allow this basically drive-through. This is going in complete opposition to your design standards and what you're hoping to accomplish here. Does this really seem like a site where pedestrians are going to be walking and sitting and chatting? And I know I'm out of time. I see you're looking at your watch, but I again want to thank you for hearing me. My clients are very sorry that they could not be here tonight. They could not come because of Passover, but they did want me to tell you that they really oppose this site. They have an easement. They have parking easements that are going to be impacted. The evidence that is really before you, that's been presented to you by the applicant, gives you the sound evidence that you need to really question this site. And we ask that you deny the site plan as currently proposed, and we thank you. We thank you for your time.
Are there any questions from council?
Well, just to be fair, I would ask if
Mr. Minor,
if she
go ahead.
if she believes she requires any additional time from us. Just to be fair, I'm going to toss that question out there, but I'm looking at you because I don't
Oh,
think
she
I
can,
ask
No,
you
she
no,
has
she
it.
has the
She
time.
has
We've
as
already
much
given
time
her
as she
both
wants.
time.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I appreciate that so much. Let me just look through my notes and make sure I haven't missed anything that I wanted to say, then I appreciate that. With regard to that tab 2, and if you look at those truck turns, they're showing you truck turns coming in and out of the property. Those are showing how the trucks would come in to deliver, but that's not showing how the traffic would flow. The traffic would flow east and west coming out of that relocation, out of that redevelopment site.
No, she didn't. She said, no, by the traffic bureau. She didn't say anything about the fire.
I guess I would like to add that, my client really fears that this site plan is not going to create a revitalized property. It's going to create issues with the safety, the welfare, and really, it's going to have a damaging effect on people who both want to frequent this plaza. It's going to have a damaging effect on the city's ability to control traffic there. There are two motions in front of you tonight. The CVS motion really should be tabled because we don't even know if the CVS is even going to move. They're telling us tonight that CVS may not move. So, that's a question about whether or not that's even ripe for your consideration. Then the second motion, we think both motions should be denied based on this site plan.
I just have a quick comment. If the CVS doesn't move, that would be less traffic than in that area. And the other thing is I believe, Mr. Brascia, that was addressed about the fire trucks, the ambulance going through, that then it was approved, I believe. Can I ask that? Is that what he had said? I don't know if he's not here, but Chief, could you address?
I'm not sure on the final discussion on that. So I don't have anything to add.
Okay,
If
thank
I
you.
could, Madam Chair.
Oh, yeah,
go
then
ahead.
Braden, Mr. Mayor,
If you want to answer that question, you could, because they did address it in the plans. They moved
Mr. Thomas.
the walk a little.
Yeah, they have an ambulance on the plan that's sitting right in the driveway that is somehow to get to the.
I think it's
sorry.
important that it's explained to us, because that's an important factor.
Yes, so that was an issue that came up at the original Planning Commission meeting. Since then, that issue has been addressed, and to my knowledge, there are no other outstanding comments from any other city departments.
And the Planning Commission did approve it.
Correct.
Mr. Balestrea? Thank you.
Just
Mr.
to add to that, that additional walkway was requested by the fire department as stated for access for stretcher, if they needed to access the site. Obviously, if there's an ambulance there, they're going to cordon off and there's not going to be any traffic coming in, so it's not going to be a traffic issue. However, I did request at the last planning commission that there be signage there on that walkway for a caution, for cautionary measures that the Landis Group agreed to put there. So people just don't walk out into the middle of traffic. So the safety issue has been a concern of the Planning Commission and has been addressed.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Thomas,
Any other questions?
are there any further questions? Okay, thank you. All right.
Madam President, I suspect you would not allow a brief response.
I'm sorry. Unless council had a question for you, but at that point, I think,
You lawyers can't keep talking, we can't talk.
okay. All right.
Lawyers
Any
and preachers.
more comments or questions from council just based on what we just heard?
Just that we would have to add motion B to the agenda tonight. I don't know why it was left off the agenda. There was two motions that were approved by the Planning Commission. One was for the CVS and one was for Popeyes. They were two separate items. So motion.
There were two?
Yeah, motion
Here's
B
the
would
other
be for, if you look in the minutes, Mr. Murphy.
I haven't gotten a copy of the minutes yet.
Oh,
Here they
what's before us tonight is the CVS building, and I'm sure they're asking for approval for the final site plan for Popeyes, which was approved also by the Planning Commission.
Right, there are two that were approved, so if you'd like to,
Yeah, I would like
Move
to,
that that be added, that's fine.
request to add a motion to the agenda to approve final site plan for Popeyes 5901 Mayfield Road, a new 1,995 square foot building, as approved by planning. Motion to add,
Motion to add B.
B.
Need a second?
Second.
So was it moved by Mr. Belstrade to add motion B and a second by Mrs. Sabetta? Roll call on the motion to add the motion B.
Mr. Mano. Yes. Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Ms. Talbin.
Yes.
Mr. Minor.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Motion B has now been added to tonight's agenda, but we're still on motion A, so I'm going to do a roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Minor.
Yes.
Mr. Mano. No. Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Ms. Talbin.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. So it's a 5-1 vote, and this has been approved. Moving to motion B. Mr. Murphy.
I don't have it in front of
Hold
you.
on.
You took my,
It's, right here, planning, this is my set of planning minutes, and there's a
I
planning and
need
zoning.
my agenda.
You can borrow mine.
Okay. B, a motion to approve the final site plan for the plan for development of
It's right there.
a quick-serve restaurant at 5901 Mayfield Road.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Balestria. And second
Second.
by Mr. Minor. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Minor.
Yes.
Ms. Talbin.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mr. Mano. Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Motion B has now been approved. Okay. At this time, I am going to request a motion to enter into executive session for the purpose of possible pending
Pending or imminent
or
litigation.
eminent litigation.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Balestria, second by Mr. Minor. Roll call on the motion to enter into executive session.
Ms. Talbin. Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. Minor.
Yes.
Mr. Mano. Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. It is now 8:35, and we are going to enter into executive session.
I have a drawer full of them.
It is now 8:56, and we are back in session. I don't know what we should do. We have one tabled item that we've thought about taking off the table this evening. I would need a motion and a second, and it's for the dispensaries supplementary regulations. I don't know if anybody would like to take it off the table this evening. I need a motion and a second.
I would motion to take it off the table.
So I have a motion from Mrs. Sabetta. I just need a second
Second.
and a second. Roll call on taking ordinance number 2023-33 off the table and placing it on tonight's agenda.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Ms. Tobin.
Me? Okay, sorry, didn't hear it. Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. Minor.
Yes.
Mr. Mano. Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Okay. So this was read 3 times, I believe. So I just need to suspend the rules on the reading. Do you know what we're talking about? It's the supplementary regulations and regarding prohibited uses. And it would be adding the verbiage of adult use and recreational to the original ordinance. You would just be adding those 2 words. So we would need to amend it.
Okay.
Right.
So you need,
Madam Chair.
No,
No.
it's-
What we're asking for right now is a motion to amend this ordinance by adding the verbiage, adult use, recreational use, to the prohibited areas. We already have it in place. We have medical in place. We would just be adding adult use and recreational use to the prohibited areas of this supplementary ordinance. Moved by Mr. Mano. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Sabetta. So a roll call on the motion to amend this ordinance, adding those 2 words.
Mr. Minor.
We're amending it, and then we could vote and discuss.
This is just to add the amendment.
We're just adding, we had the discussion.
That's the motion. You can make a motion anytime you want.
Okay. So we don't discuss the motion. We should
You
discuss
can.
before the motion, or that's what I'm asking?
That's what's on the table now, is the motion to amend.
Yes.
And if you want to discuss it, then discuss it.
Okay. So I don't have to vote right now if I want discussion.
Well,
Correct?
nobody wanted to discuss it, so she called for a vote.
Okay.
But you want to discuss.
Like to.
Okay, go
So
ahead.
back it up.
Oh, okay.
Back it up.
All right,
I
Mr.
missed the gap of.
That's
of me
okay.
being able to
There's a
chime in.
lot going on here. So Mr. Minor, go ahead.
So I just want to, and I had a couple conversations. I didn't get to everyone, but I want to make sure that once we vote on this particular amendment, that we do not close ourselves off from learning more about the economic and social impact of having a dispensary in the city. At some point, the 3 vape shops are going to be able to get a license, right? If we so decide to change our minds at some point and allow it in the city, we would have to restrict it to how many businesses we may want to do it, or the process in which they operate within the city. So I just want to make sure that we aren't just a hard no on this particular thing. I am not a yes or no. I am a we don't know enough. So it makes sense for us to put something temporarily in place until we learn more. But economically, the city's landscape is going to change as far as our revenues. So keeping diversification in mind, I just want to toss that out there for us to think about moving forward. So that's my only note.
Thank you.
And if anybody has questions around what I mean by that, by all means,
We spoke quite a bit this past weekend about it, I think, and I understand where you're coming from. It's going to be, it's brand new to all of Ohio. So I think at a later date, we definitely can revisit this when people are living it, seeing it, around it. You know, it's just something new. Nobody cares for change, so it's really going to be hard to understand all the change until we live it. So, but everything and anything can always be revisited. We can open up anything we've passed at any given time. Okay. Wait a second. I think Mike had a question.
Pretty much what you stated, that we could always go back to an ordinance as lawmakers of the city and change whatever we see as fit. Make it an allowable use at some time in the future when we have all the data. And as we spoke, I said to Mr. Minor that I just felt it was too new for us to act on it. And this would stop the conversations from coming in. I just feel the gentleman that was presenting to us didn't really have all of his facts. A lot of it to us was speculation and sales, so to speak. And I take great credence in what our police chief said. It's too new. It's going to stress his department in some manner or form. He doesn't want to see us vote for it, and at this time, to not do it. So I'm going to respect the wishes of the police chief, and say this is a wait and see. This is definitely something that we may feel differently in the future. I'm concerned about how the residents may feel. We don't know what the take is on the community. We don't know what the take is, where they want to put this, and how the neighboring tenants may feel. I don't know if I will have a restaurant and want a marijuana dispensary next to me. So we don't know. There's too many unknowns, and I'm not prepared to vote yes on anything that I don't know about that's in the best interest of the city. That's my take.
Thank you. I agree with you as well.
Me also.
Mr. Mano, and Mrs. Sabetta, I know, does. We spent a lot of time in the legislation. I mean, it didn't just stop here. It was doing your homework, going to the facility, talking. I've talked to the people that own the areas of where these dispensaries want to go. I've gotten their take on it. So it's been, we didn't just make this decision lightly. So, or at least my thinking on this whole thing was not made lightly. So, but Mr. Mano, you did have your hand up.
There's really not a whole heck of a lot. that
Don,
we can
turn your mic on.
Turn your mic on.
There's not a whole lot we can do since the law has been passed. However, our efforts, I think, need to be in controlling how many dispensaries and where they're located. I don't want to see them up and down Mayfield Road. I think we need to control the areas where they can have a dispensary and limit the numbers. I revert back to what we did with the strip clubs. You zone them into the shopping plazas and let the shopping centers deal with whether or not they want to fight with these people or let them in. And, their customer base will let them know whether they want them there or not. And again, like Mike said, heed what the chief said. Whatever dollars we may get, how much of that are you going to pay out for extra police presence and so on and so forth? I mean, it's a double-edged sword. You can't stop it, but you can try to control it as much as you can.
I also would like to say that when, maybe after the state, everything opens to, I think it's June 1st, I believe. I personally would like to see us have our own ordinance and legislation on this topic and pull this out of this supplementary regulation area and have our own legislation.
Can we do that?
That's,
But we should do it now before.
Now, you need to know what the
No,
state's
we don't
going to
know.
do.
Yeah, we don't- yeah, we
Right
don't know
now-
enough.
Right now, it appears that it is the idea of council that it should be prohibited. So if you want to permit it, yes, you can do an ordinance, but it's got to be in keeping with state law, too,
Well, for now, I'm
which is
fine
a
with
moving target right
prohibiting
now. Okay,
As long
so
as
this
we
will
can.
prohibit it.
Okay.
Right. And I just
Ms.
want to
Talbot.
add thing. I know that we're talking about adding adult use, and we used to have, we had already medical, but we've got 6 years of data and research on the importance of what it's doing for people. And the thing that troubles me in general about prohibiting that is I see it as a pharmacy. And we have 1,000 people who have cards, and we're not giving them access in our city to that. That's the part that I ask myself a question on. And I understand that people want to know more and wait, and I'm fine with that. But it's complicated, and what's important is that we keep getting educated about it so that we're smart about it, and we decide to bring it up and continue to educate ourselves as to when and how.
Yes, I agree with you.
Yeah, you know.
The other thing that I think we got caught up on, we only had this one person come before us. We got caught up on a lot of the things that this gentleman told us. But looking into some of the things that he told us, I'm not so sure all of it was, not that it was not correct, but there's little things that I found out along the way. But the 1,000 people that he had gave us numbers for was from a 44124 zip code area. But that also is part of Lyndhurst, 44124. So it's not, his 1,000 numbers of people might have been into other communities that have the same
South
zip code.
Euclid.
Yeah, South Euclid. So I just feel like waiting is the best thing for our community at this time. I think a lot of people initiated this in many communities. I know we don't want to be like all the other communities, but I just feel like if so many people hopped on this to restrict it, and I think it's smart right now because it is a new law, and I just feel that it's important that we look at it now and we'll look at it later, for all reasons. So I just felt it was important for it to not sit on our table much longer. I know there's been some other inquiries in the city about, from other companies and other businesses or people wanting to bring it in. I know I've had 2 phone calls already personally. So it's just something that we need to not let just sit on our table. So,
Yeah,
Well, I would like to say something, please. You know, I have checked into this and done a lot of education, but I have gone through, you know, the House bills. I've also, you know, had conversation and articles concerning the governor. The governor is still looking at this. And for us to put a legislation together, it would have to be after some use. As for our residents, the 1,000 that they say we do have, less than 3 miles away, there's 2, and soon to be 3. And none of them are receiving any money at this point. And one of the House bills actually takes the money away. So
Interesting.
if those come back for vote, you could be putting this in your city and
never seen
not
it.
getting that 30-point-some% that they said.
3.6.
Is it 30.6?
No,
3.6.
3.6.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we're the
Part of his-
million that
part of
he
his
is
sales-
stating.
part of his sales
It
pitch.
is part.
I'm sorry.
I've been checking on this, and they're just sitting there, those. And I'm sure it's because the governor has issues with all the gummies and the children and the mothers. You know, it's
Diane?
it's a thought that needs to be really thought out. And I know we are a really vibrant city, and we have a lot of good things happening. And, I don't want to say that, let's just do this for money. I just don't want to do that.
Thank you. And then Mr. Balestria.
I think, if you recall part of his presentation, when he was talking about the tax dollars that the city could possibly receive, and he threw out some numbers. He didn't explain initially that's only a tag to the adult use. I mean, it made us believe, at least for me, it made us believe that all those sales that they were getting on the medical side was going to be, taxed and reimbursed to the city. Now, when he came in the second time, then he mentioned adult use and the tax money, and he emphasize that, it's on the adult use side, the recreational use, that those dollars, because I asked Dana if anything was realized from other communities, and she said no. Well, that's because recreational use hasn't gone into effect.
Right.
So there was a misconception, and I think maybe he was a little misleading. At least that's the way I understood it initially, that, we were going to get some tax dollars on the medicinal side too, but that wasn't the case.
And I provided that information at the legislation meeting because I went to the Cannabis Summit to gather data. And so I presented the fact it was 10% excise tax only on adult use. And I thought, that's what I heard because that's what I knew to be true, so. But there's a lot of information to learn and dissect.
Yeah.
It's not easy. And then the other thing is the Delta 8 and Delta 9, which has nothing to do with dispensaries, and I had a conversation of, should we consider home rule on that? That's a whole separate
Right.
conversation.
I think the confusion on that, Kathy, was
Yeah.
the fact that they were using, or you were using, or he was using adult use, and we were using recreational use,
Right.
which the two were synonymous.
Right.
And we didn't understand that until
Right.
later on.
Right.
But
Well,
but
now
the-
we have them both in our,
But the chief has already, the chief has already stated, I think, I don't know if it was in a private conversation or the chief stated it publicly, that they have had incidences where the deltas were being sold to minors,
Yes.
with undercover police.
Mhm.
And they found out that
that they
these
were being
sales,
sold to
these-
minors,
these sales are going on in the city. So it may be something that
Yeah.
that we need to look at.
we
as
need to
well.
look at.
Yeah, and if I can just clarify that too. They're not supposed to, it's not that they are, it's that the clerk did, and they were supposed to check ID. Because I talked with the chief about it, so I could truly understand the details of it. And so when they did a undercover and got a child to go buy, they went to go buy at all three, and one sold. And what's cited is the clerk, just like they do with alcohol.
Yeah.
If you sell to a minor, it's the clerk that gets cited. So, but it was one that did, and they shouldn't have.
Right.
But I was glad to hear that by common practice, they are supposed to check ID and not sell.
But how many
I mean,
times
so that's
is
at
that
least
going on?
that,
You only
yeah.
caught one.
Doesn't mean you still don't want to consider anything else, but at least those are the details that I picked up.
Good,
Now,
thank
I
you.
did read the rules and regulations, and the word that they use is non-medical. All the rules, there's 45 pages of them, by the way, so you'll be
So
very
they don't
busy.
use residential
Yeah, they use non-medical.
or recreational.
And what ours is going to say is adult use, recreational, and medical marijuana, which is already there, and cannabis products in accordance with chapters, and then we name the chapters and of the Ohio Revised Code, as well as all other applicable chapters of the Revised Code. That's what we agreed on. So we would be covered until we decided if we ever want to move this out of here.
You've got medical, now this is going to be, it accomplishes, I think, what you want. That's what we talked about.
Absolutely. I
Okay.
was just asking now that she said that it's listed non-medical, that's all. I didn't know how it was listed.
They're synonyms.
Yes.
They're
But it
synonyms.
says
Okay,
any
then we're-
cannabis products. so.
Okay, we're
And-
good.
Go
Call
ahead.
for the
All right,
vote.
so,
I just want to clarify
Call for
one
the
other
vote.
thing. Sorry. So, Mr. Murphy, just want to clarify one other thing. So when we vote, it's not an emergency legislation. It wasn't brought up as an emergency legislation, so it will take 30 days to go into effect, correct?
It depends on, I don't have it I don't have it in front of me, so I can't. If it doesn't say emergency, then it is not an emergency.
It is not.
No, I don't see.
You got it? Okay. Oh, wait a minute, I got it. I'm sleeping
Supplement
here.
regulation.
Ordinance shall take effect at the earliest time allowed by law.
Which would be
That's
30
30
days.
days.
30 days. And so my understanding is that if something takes 30 days, citizens could have a citizens referendum against our vote.
Correct.
Okay, so that still is an option if the citizens would like to take that.
Always an option.
So I just want to clarify that as well.
okay. We're good. I'm going to call for the vote.
Mr. Minor,
Yes. It's a motion to amend.
Oh, hold on. That's
You're
what I,
voting on the amendment.
yeah. It's a motion, so I need a motion to approve.
No, you.
Don made it, right?
You've
Approve as
already,
amended.
You've moved to amend it, you've had a discussion. So now it is a vote on whether or not to amend it based on what you said.
Sounds good.
Add adult use recreational and cannabis products.
So it's been moved and seconded, and now
Roll
roll
call
call on the motion to amend. Right.
Mr. Minor,
Yes.
Mr. Mano. Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Ms. Tobin.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. So this ordinance has now been adopted.
No, that was the
Amended.
Oh,
motion
amended.
to
No.
amend.
Amend.
Now you need a
Don't get
motion.
upset with me.
Oh,
There's
I'm
a lot,
just-
there's a lot here
Well,
going
I'm just
on.
telling you what
Okay.
the procedure is.
Now, we're doing a motion to approve as amended.
Correct.
I need, moved by
Oh.
Mr. Minor.
Sure.
And second
Yeah, I'm sorry.
by Mr. Balestria. We've already had much discussion on this, and I'm going to go to a roll call on the motion to approve.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. Mano. Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Ms. Tobin.
Yes.
Mr. Minor.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. This ordinance has now been approved as amended. Is there any new business or questions from council? Comments? No. All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Oh, wait 1 second. Are we going to let Mr. know about this? Because he sent an email asking us to let him know when we make a decision about this,
Yeah, I'll send him an email.
so that we can at least let him know.
Yeah, I can send Mr. Halloran
Yes.
an email to let him know that it was passed, or,
Moved.
okay. All right, now, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Minor, second by Mrs. Sabetta. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?